Hello, and welcome to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway podcast. That's right. Your host and tour guide is Scott Prevett, a healer, hypnotist, and a magician. And your bus driver is Jason Gobelli, also a hypnotist, an entrepreneur, and a spiritual guide. Disclaimer, neither Jason, Scott, or any of our guests here today are licensed professional psychologists or psychiatrists. So please don't make any changes to any medication or treatments that you are currently on based on the conversation that you hear here today. Just hop on the bus and enjoy the ride. Trip with us on the Inner Revelation bus. That's right.
Hi, I'm Jason Gobelli, and welcome back to the Hypno Travelers on the Magical Psyche Highway. We got a great guest today, don't we, Scott?
Yep, we've got her here.
That's right. We got Nicole Mazzucato. Hi, Nicole. How are you doing?
Hey, guys. It's really great to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Really,
welcome.
grateful.
It's wonderful to have you here. We're big fans of the Hypnotic Healer, so it's good to be here. And we're sorry that you're not playing no more. We miss you already. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, we'd been going for a while, and we just decided we came to the end of our highway for the moment. Yeah.
Well, now we want to know a little bit about you, Nicole. Who are you? What are you all about? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Gosh, it's so weird being on this side of the interview, you know? I'm not used to it. Tell you a bit about myself. Where do I start? That's such a big question. I don't really know where to start. Do you reckon you can help me out a bit? Guide me.
Okay. Well, when did you decide and when did you have that aha moment that, hey, you know what? I'm a healer and I can help people?
That's been a lifelong journey, I think. It really has. I remember as a kid, always being I used to love massaging people and you know, kind of placing my hands on people, and I was always kind of like massaging people's shoulders and things like that. So I think massage and touch in that sense was kind of like the first way in for me. And then I got really into kind of alternative health for my own personal reasons as well. But quite young, I was already kind of looking at alternative diets, alternative health, essential oils. How do you say it in English? Phytotherapia, like herbal medicines, like plant medicines and things like that. So it's been a long journey, really, of development, and a lot of amazing people have crossed my path along the way that I've been amazingly blessed to have support me on my journey. And I guess it's been a lifelong thing, really.
Nice. And you started to get into hypnosis too, as well. I noticed. I've seen that when I look at your website and see things, that's your big niche right now. So what made that transformation?
So that was about 5 years ago, and that wasn't my first encounter with hypnosis. I had some hypnosis done when I was a teenager. Actually, my mum took me to a hypnotist, but I don't really remember connecting with it that well, because I think I was way too caught up in my issue and way too caught up in my problem that I wasn't really open to being helped in that way.
So did it work?
Did it work? I don't know. Like I say, I was too involved in the problem at the time. Obviously, I didn't know that. I didn't have that awareness. But when I've looked back at it, I'm like, I'm not really sure. I think I was too much kind of fighting against the change. I didn't want to change because it was working in my benefit too much to have the problem.
And did you finally make the change?
Oh yeah.
And what caused it?
Actually, something a doctor scared the shit out of me, and it just it really made me flip a switch. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like an interesting story.
Yeah. I'd had a lot of issues, health issues, so stomach issues and things for quite a number of years, and it was really problematic for me. And like I say, I didn't know at the time, but I was very much attached to this issue. You know, it was giving me a lot of gain in a lot of different ways. And then I think I was about 18 at the time, and we went to see this surgeon, this specialist who was supposed to do an operation to help me sort this problem out. And he basically said to me, I can't think of the words in English at the moment. It was like in its kind of a testing phase still, this kind of treatment. And basically what they were going to do was put a pacemaker in the mouth of my stomach to kind of get my stomach to work properly, because it had basically just kind of the functioning of my stomach had really slowed down. It was causing a lot of problems. So the idea was that the pacemaker, similar to what it does for a heart, it was going to get my stomach pumping so that it could do what it did. And he said to me, this was the flip switch moment. He said, basically, and if anybody's squeamish, then now's the time to plug your ears. We're going to have to cut you open from the base of your sternum all the way down to like your pubic bone. And I was like, no, you're not. Yeah. And it was just that. It was the kind of the extremity of the kind of the incision that he was talking about doing, and having to have like the batteries changed I can't remember if he said every like 5 or 10 years. So we have to open you up again to change the batteries. And I was like, are you crazy? No way. There is no way you're doing that to me. And I think my mind at that point, I mean, that was my hypnosis, right? That was my hypnotic moment where my mind was like, yeah, no, I'm finding another way out of this. That's not going to be the route. So,
No.
Wow.
yeah.
So now you're better. Now you're better.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was letting on to my age, but that was like 22 years ago.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations on finding that healing there. And
Yeah.
speaking of healing, you had interviewed so many people and so many healers. And I know that a lot of these guys don't agree with each other. So I bet you've learned a lot on this. So tell us a little bit about some of these experiences that you've had.
You know, we were really blessed with hypnotic healers. And I had another podcast as well called Heart, Soul and Roots, which we also parked after a couple of years. But on both of them, and I guess you guys will know this, having a podcast is an amazing platform to talk to some incredible people who come from all different walks of life and are doing some amazing work. And people are really generous about sharing their stories and sharing their experiences and their wisdom. And for me, every guest was a gift. Every guest had something different to offer. Had a different perspective, and maybe I didn't necessarily agree with where they're coming from, but I suppose one of my key values is openness and keeping an open mind and a love of learning. And you know, I want to listen to what other people say and how they approach things and how they think about things, because it may just very well give me a new bit of information that I've never thought about before. So, you know, I'm so grateful for all of the people that we spoke to. And, you know, there are some kind of nuggets that have stuck in my mind, potentially more than others. There are guests, you know, that I've maybe stayed in touch with, or that I've gone on to have other sorts of collaborations with, guests that, you know, we just collaborated in that moment. But yeah, each one with their own way of thinking. And like I say, if you can hold that space of openness and willingness to listen to what people have to offer without, I suppose, without needing to kind of overturn everything they say. It's like, that's your experience, that's your way of doing things, and I might not agree with that, but I'm happy to sort of listen and maybe just ask you a few questions about it and see if maybe I can gain some extra insight. So yeah, it's a special thing to be able to share these moments with people.
Nice. So
You write about that in your about me page on your website. You even write about your openness and willingness to others.
Yeah, again, another lifelong journey, Scott. And thank you for picking up on that. It's I think I've pushed myself in my life to attempt to understand other people's experiences. And I've really pushed myself out of my comfort zone time and time again, in an attempt to understand how other people experience life. But I also put on my about page, you can never fully understand somebody else's experience because you can never walk in their shoes. You
Never
know, you
walk
can
in
get
their
an
shoes.
idea. Yeah, you can have an idea of that, but everybody's experience is completely different. And I think that's amazing, really. It's truly amazing. And I think if we can stay open, there's so much for us to be able to learn from each other.
And speaking of
That's
learning,
true.
so what are some great nuggets that you stole that you use and incorporate in your business?
So I think his name was Christopher Nolan, and he came up with this expression, which was lessons, blessings, and understandings. And I have packed that firmly away in my toolbox. And this idea of when we're kind of helping clients review things or you kind of review or take anything from the past, I always incorporate that, the lessons, blessings, and understandings that you took from those experiences or whatever it is that you needed to take from that time. So that's kind of definitely one thing that really sticks in my mind. Who else? Donna Bloom, she came on and she was talking about I don't know if I'm going to say this right, guys, so sorry. It's Ho'oponopono, I think it is.
Yeah.
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah, that's the one. And she did a demo, and I've used that so many times with clients since, and it's so powerful. It's so powerful, and it's amazing the emotion that it can bring up for people. It's just those 4 phrases, just repeating them over again. And I don't know that I'm using it within the right kind of framework that they teach it in or whatever, but those 4 phrases in and of themselves have been amazingly transformative and helpful to my clients. So those are 2 that really stick out in my mind. Freddie Jacquin, I'm a huge fan of Freddie's, and I've trained with him and I continue to train with him, and I love Freddie dearly, and I think he's an amazing human being. He's really generous and kind and humble and giving, and I think his humbleness, his humility, and his generosity, along with Anthony, his son, that they work together. I think it helps keep a lot of people in this industry grounded, especially people that train with them and work with them. I think that humility is it's a gift and it's inspiring.
Well, definitely in this industry, we have some that are grounded, but we have some that are, let's put it this way, extremely confident.
Very diplomatic way of putting it, Jason. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Wow.
and so you've viewed quite a few characters too, haven't you?
We have. Yeah. Like I say, each is unique, each has their own experience. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, the main thing is that we're having fun and that you're having fun and we get to grow from it. So let's talk about you yourself and some of the things too. So you specialize in working with kids a lot, right?
So not necessarily kids. I'll be honest. I'm going to be honest off the bat. I'm not very good with little kids. I never have been. Never. I don't think I ever will be. But teenagers, sort of 15, 16 upwards is really a kind of passion area for me. I love that age group. I love working with them. I come from a teaching background where I was working with people of all ages, but I've always been very drawn to that particular age group. I really struggled when I was that age. And I kind of remember at one point being about 16 years old, feeling completely alone, completely misunderstood, that kind of teenage, nobody gets me. And I remember kind of thinking to myself, I want to be somebody that can help people that are, kind of feeling this way. And I think through my teaching as well, I was always kind of a little bit of a rebel teacher, like, oh, chuck the book out. We don't need that. Let's just do something else. Let's just do something that actually means something rather than this stuff that's just to tick boxes. And I've done a lot of work in schools. I used to run summer schools. I used to be a manager of international summer schools with that age group. So, residential role, I'm kind of in charge of 120 teenagers, 24 hours a day. And I love it. I've always loved being around that age group. I think they're fascinating. They have so much to give, but their contributions are just not valued enough because people blow them off as you're just a teenager. You don't have the life experience or you don't have the wisdom. You're still learning. There's so much to learn, or your hormones are all over the place. And, there's so many kind of excuses that people make for blowing off teenagers. but actually they just also need to be heard and listened to and valued and made to feel like they're important and that what they have to say has, value to it. And I really believe that. And I've learned so much from my students, from my clients. Again, it's that openness. I think it's not, I'm an adult, I've got 25 years on you, so I know better than you. I just know something different from my experience, but it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong or better or worse.
Well, you said,
Aren't you back in school yourself?
I am. I am. Yeah, I'm doing a master's at the moment. Yeah, which is breaking my brain on a regular basis, but it's very interesting. Yeah.
and you said that you were a little bit of a rebel teacher, so I imagine that you were probably a little bit of a rebel student in your teens too, huh?
I think, yeah, potentially, but I didn't like school. I hated school. I hated it. I really struggled with it. I had a really hard time. I just could never see the point in it. And it just, nobody, I never had a teacher that really kind of inspired me enough to go, oh yeah, this is cool. I love learning. It was always, it was a kind of a structure where it was just kind of like, this is what you have to do, and you have to get through this to do your exams. And I was like, well, why? Why does that have to be the definition of life, really? And it doesn't.
Okay. And so get this. So I noticed you work with teenagers, but then I also noticed you work on the corporate end with corporate. And in some ways, those two are very much alike, aren't they?
Well, Jason, I'm going to ask you, you posed the question, how do you draw the comparison?
Oh, okay. Well, now I'm on the other side here. I run my own business, and I've had multiple businesses. And sometimes with a teenager, they're just kind of like breaking out and trying to get their own way and finding their own way. And when a person's running their own business, a lot of times we just don't beat to the same drum as other people do that do a 9-to-5 job. The ones who are the movers and shakers. So that's kind of how I drew that comparison. They're a little bit more of a rebel mind, if I might say so. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, yeah, and I absolutely see that. I see, the entrepreneurial spirit with the teenage, the kind of teenage spirit. Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate the comparison. In terms of the people that I work with, a lot of them are kind of people that are starting to move into leadership roles, or kind of new-ish managers, potentially starting to move up the leadership ladder. So a lot of the work that I do there is mental fitness. So I do a lot of mental fitness coaching and leadership development, but I also bring in hypnosis and hypnotic techniques and things to consolidate the work that we do through the coaching as well. It's a really interesting group of people as well to work with. There's so much out there focusing on senior leaders, because really that's where, people think the money's there, and that's where, I've got to go and get those clients because I'll be able to charge them their high ticket clients, and I'll be able to charge them whatever I want to charge them. But there's this amazing group of people that are starting to move into those roles that also need support, and that need people that have had that experience and that can help them navigate this really complicated transition from total subordinate to, okay, I'm starting to move up, maybe I've got one direct report, or maybe I've got a team reporting to me, but I've never had to manage that before. And all of those kind of dynamics that come with managing people and kind of understanding everybody else's experience, it's tricky, right? It's not easy to manage people. And also, if you're kind of like that middle manager, you're kind of stuck in the middle of a shit sandwich at the end of the day. You've got these people below you, and you've got these people above you, and you've got a lot of limitations on what you can and can't do as well when you're kind of in that, just stepping into a management role and things. And that can also be quite tricky and requires a lot of confidence, a lot of courage, a lot of clarity, boundaries, a lot of being able to set your own boundaries as well. So it's a really, really interesting group of people.
Nice. So what are some of your favorite techniques that you like to use when you're doing your change work and healing?
I've got to be honest with you, this is coming up a lot for me lately. I really miss massage. I really miss it. You know, I miss that kind of healing touch, if you like, that, yeah, I miss that contact with people, because most of the work that I do now is online. So I'm kind of thinking about at some point starting to reincorporate the physical part to it, because, you know, I've done a lot of reflexology and massage and aromatherapy and all sorts of things. So I am really missing that piece, and I think I'm going to find a way to work it back into what I do. At the moment, I'm doing focusing a lot more on coaching and hypnosis. And yeah, I love coaching. I'm really passionate about coaching, and I think it's a beautiful way to work with people. And consolidating the coaching work with hypnosis is an incredibly powerful combination. So that's mostly the way that I'm working at the moment. And in terms of hypnosis, there's something that I'm playing around with. I'll let you in on a little secret. I've been really inspired recently by metaphor. And I love this whole idea of metaphor and imagery. So I'm doing a lot of testing at the moment with client-generated metaphor and letting the client completely lead on what comes up and working with whatever they provide to help them kind of get through get to the other side of that. So, for example, it might be
adding that clean language.
I've got to be honest with you. I've heard of clean language, but I'm not too familiar with it. So I'd be really grateful, Scott, if you could enlighten me a bit more.
It's basically just what you described. That's what I think. Okay. You'll find out that the more you explore that, I think you'll find exactly what you're looking for.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll have to go down that route. Yeah. And I think it's so powerful, isn't it? When it's all client generated. You're putting the power so much more in their hands and saying and actually saying to them, I trust that you know how to sort this out. I don't need to be the one that's directing you in one direction or another, right? I'm truly taking on the role of facilitator rather than guide. Do you know does that make sense?
Yes.
Exactly. We believe in that 100%. We believe that there's no reason to relive those past experiences when you can get it at a totally different way. And the client coming up with their own solution is much more powerful than someone giving them something to do.
Yeah, for sure. And the breakthroughs that I'm seeing with clients as well, you know, is so much. I don't want to say so much more. It's just different, isn't it? It's just a different response, I guess. But I'm really enjoying playing around with that at the moment.
I'll bet those teenagers can really come up with some creative metaphors.
Yeah. It's amazing what people come up with, and it's so much more meaningful to them, isn't it? You know, when you can just say, all right, so you paint this picture for me, right? Tell me what that is. And I mean, you guys know I'm not shy to a bit of bad language, so I'm quite happy to hold that space for young people as well. And quite often, you know, they're a bit like, oh, you know, something came out, and I was like, it's fine, don't worry about it. As Tim Box once said, Nicole swears like a trooper. So, I think, you know, that also gives them a safe space to just express themselves however they want to express themselves. They're not being judged. It's fine. You know, if that's where you need to go, that's where you need to go. It's all good. I can hold that space for you. I don't need you to feel uncomfortable in this space. I need you to feel as relaxed and calm and confident as you can be, so we can help you get to where you want to get to.
Nice. Now, speaking of where you want to get to, I know you have this desire to physically lay hands with the massage, and we're going to school for the masters, and we have all this going on. So is there like emergence coming up in the future where you're going to combine all this together and just like wow us all?
If you've got a crystal ball there and you can tell me how this is all going to come together, I'd be really grateful.
I was just wondering if you had a plan.
I am not great at plans, I'll be honest. I am, yeah, plans are not my strong point, you know, and I've done so much training over the years of setting goals and where do you want to be in 5 years and 10 years. And I find that really, it's great and it's useful and it's lovely to have an idea of where you're going. It doesn't necessarily work for me. You know, whenever I've traveled the world and whenever I've gone, it's literally just been, I've bought a ticket to here, I've landed and then figured out where I'm going from there. I've never, you know, sort of pre-booked anything or opened a map beforehand or anything like that. And that's a little bit how I run my life. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. Let's go over there and see what happens.
And yet you started on your master, so that's a pretty big commitment right there. So that's kind of a little bit of a plan as well, right?
Again, people have asked me, what's the plan with the masters? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing it because I find it interesting. So yeah, it's certainly a commitment. It's definitely a commitment, but it's a challenge as well. And it's truly fascinating, the stuff that I'm being exposed to and the freedom that I'm being given to explore things that I'm interested in and you know getting my teeth into some really kind of deep psychological concepts that are really going to help inform my work and the way that I practice and give me a much deeper knowledge behind what I'm doing is an amazing experience and an absolute privilege.
Well, it does sound like all the pieces are beginning to fall in place.
I hope so. I hope so. I hope to come back and tell you in a couple of years, hey guys, I figured it out. This is where it went.
Well, it's real interesting. We know that you do interviews on podcasts because I think you're one of the first guests who started throwing questions back at me and Scott when we asked them.
That's the first.
So how can people reach you? How can our viewers reach you if they want to use you and get together and get some of this wonderful work that you're doing?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I've really moved away from social media in the past year. So I do have an Instagram account and I do have Facebook. I very rarely check them anymore, but if you drop me a message on Facebook, I will get it. Otherwise, you can go to my website, which is NicoleMazzucato.com. And there you can sign up to my newsletter. My newsletter I'm pretty religious about. So I tend to write a newsletter every week, if not every other week. And that for me is my way of communicating on a very deep level with my audience. So if anybody wants to kind of join up there, I promise not to spam you or sell your details to anyone or anything like that. It's quite a sacred space for me. So if you'd like to join me there, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, you can drop me an email or contact me through my website. And my email address is info@NicoleMazzucato.com. So those are kind of like the best ways to get hold of me. Yeah.
Okay, so I got another question for you.
Yeah, go
Now
for
that
it.
we're going to be able to get a hold of you and our clients, our viewers can get a hold of you and whatever, the big question is, what's your real passion that you're really passionate about right now?
What am I really passionate about? Are we talking about in the healing space?
Yeah, or you can share whatever. I mean, we're going down your highway right now.
Okay, cool. I mean, there's loads of things. I mean, you can probably tell I'm hugely passionate about young people, and I am working on a couple of projects in the background with some colleagues around young people and education. So that's definitely a huge passion area of mine. I think, what else? This may seem a little bit off the bat, but cooking. I love cooking, and cooking very much for me is such a healing space. Whenever I think I do my best cooking when I need to get out of my head. I love going into the kitchen. I love creating something yummy, and that process from raw ingredients to this thing that might be beautiful, might not turn out that beautiful. However it turns out, the experimentation that comes with it. And it's I'm really passionate about that. And I think there's a lot of therapy that's done in that space for me anyway. I think that can happen a lot with anything creative, because I get that as well with sewing. I mean, I haven't picked up my sewing machine for a long time, but it's the same thing with sewing. There's no such thing as a shortcut. And I think that's the same with cooking, especially when you're cooking, when you're making desserts and things like that. There is no such thing as a shortcut. As soon as you try and shortcut, you mess it all up. And you have to go back to the beginning. So something that I've really learned, especially from sewing, because I used to make a lot of clothes and stuff, is patience and the art of following a process rather than just trying to shortcut things. Because every time I try to shortcut, I'd be sitting there for hours unpicking stitching, and I was like, oh, okay, fair enough, there's that lesson again. And it really teaches you a lot about being in the moment and being really present and focused on what you're doing. And that's the thing in the kitchen as well, you know, the ingredients and the process, and seeing how things come together and understanding how different kind of spices and ingredients work together and build these beautiful things together. So yeah, I don't know if that was where we were supposed to go, but
No, that's exactly where we're supposed to go, because that's where we went. I have a friend who's a cook, and what he shared with me is that the food and the things we do can sense our feelings that are put in them. So if you cook with love, it's always tastes better because it has that language of love in it. So I bet you cook wonderfully. We'd love to have some of your food sometime.
Well, yeah, you guys are over the other side of the pond, so
A long ways away. But anyway, wonderful. Hey, Scott, do you have any other questions here?
I'm just still focused and present in the moment when she said that. That was impressive. I like that cooking puts you focused and present in the moment, and things like that are just dear to us.
Nicole, do you have anything else you want to add?
I wanted to say thank you guys so much for the invitation, and I'm really so grateful for you sharing your space with me, and I wish you guys all the best. You did say to me before we started that, you know, you listen to Hypnotic Healers. It's one of the reasons that you started this podcast, and that makes me so happy to know that we have inspired wonderful people like you to go out and do this, and yeah, that it makes it all worth it. So thank you guys.
Well, thanks for that love, Nicole. We certainly appreciate that. And to let you know, you've been on our wish list for a while to have you on here as a guest. We're thinking, well, hopefully she answers, and we're glad to have you here, and we're glad to do this with you and drive down your magical psyche highway today. So
yeah, what a great trip it was.
That's right. So for our viewers, hey, thanks for showing up. Thanks for being here this week. Thanks for listening. If you like us, give us a thumbs up. If you think we're assholes, give us the thumbs down. We don't care. Just respond, follow us, share it with your friends, and we hope to see you back. Nicole, it's been a pleasure driving down your magical psyche highway today. We certainly enjoy it. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for being here. Okay.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Wow, what a trip. Thanks for taking that journey with us today. Please like us, share us, and enlighten us with your views of the topics we drove into today. We appreciate you and love reading your comments. Thanks again, and we hope to see you back on the bus next week. That's right.